Reese's hope of finding Trinity had dwindled to almost nothing. A tip led him and Noah to a Denver motel, where a nervous receptionist confirmed Trinity had been there, leaving hours earlier with an Eastern European man. Caleb, their enemy, sprang to mind. They chased the lead south, only to hit another dead end. The motel was a setup. Someone was toying with them. Why? What did they want? And where was Trinity? Was she safe? Or was she already lost, changed? How could Reese fight an unseen enemy? And what if he was too late? Trinity, still in captivity, longs for her alpha to come and rescue her. As she lays there half-conscious, she wonders why she is being targeted by the Warlocks, and what is the conflict between wolves and the Warlocks, and the most important of them all, when did it all begin? The feud between the Warlocks and the Wolves began long before written history, in an era when both groups were united by the ancient forces that shaped the world. Magic was abundant, flowing freely through the earth, the air, and the blood of those who were blessed or cursed with the ability to wield it. But what started as a partnership between two powerful species soon unraveled, leading to one of the bloodiest conflicts in supernatural history. It began with a betrayal. The wolves were the guardians of the land, protectors of the natural world. They were bound to the earth, their strength drawn from the cycles of the moon and the wilderness they called home. The Warlocks, on the other hand, were seekers of knowledge, wielders of the arcane arts who sought to master the mysteries of life and death. Together, they balanced one another, with the wolves ensuring the Warlocks did not overstep their bounds, and the Warlocks lending their wisdom to the wolves' brute strength. The harmony shattered when a young Warlock named Azrael, consumed by his ambition, defied the laws of nature. He sought immortality, not through the natural cycle of rebirth but by stealing the life force of others. Azrael's experiments became darker and more grotesque as he targeted weaker beings, draining their vitality to extend his own life. At first, the wolves turned a blind eye. Azrael was an outlier, an aberration among his kind. But when wolves began disappearing, warriors, elders, and even cubs, their patience ran out. The alpha of that time, a fearsome wolf named Kieran, confronted the Council of Warlocks. The council, led by High Magus Alaric, denied any involvement. They claimed Azrael was a rogue, acting without their knowledge or consent. But Kieran was not convinced. The bodies of wolves, some in their human forms, others trapped mid-shift, were strung up like trophies. Their life force had been siphoned, leaving behind withered husks. Azrael himself was gone, but the evidence of his crimes was undeniable. Enraged, Kieran demanded justice. The Warlocks, however, refused to hand over Azrael. They argued that he was their responsibility, that they would deal with him in their own way. But Kieran had already lost faith in their promises. The Alpha declared war. The first blood feud was devastating. The wolves, driven by their fury and grief, unleashed their full strength upon the Warlocks. Villages were burned, sacred sites desecrated, and countless lives lost on both sides. The Warlocks, though fewer in number, were cunning and ruthless. They used their magic to create traps, illusions, and deadly curses that turned the wolves' strength against them. In one of the most infamous battles, the Warlocks summoned a tempest that decimated an entire pack. The storm raged for 3 days, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. The wolves retaliated by infiltrating the Warlock sanctuaries, tearing through their defenses with a ferocity born of despair. But the Warlocks had one final weapon. Desperate to end the war, Alaric and his council created a powerful artifact known as the Veilstone. This enchanted relic allowed them to trap wolves in their human forms, stripping them of their ability to shift. With the Veilstone, the Warlocks gained the upper hand, capturing and imprisoning entire packs. For a time, it seemed the wolves might be wiped out. But then, Kieran made a fateful decision. The Alpha knew he could not defeat the Veilstone with brute force. He turned to an ancient forbidden ritual. They stood in a sacred circle, their voices raised in a haunting chant. The air crackled with energy as the spirits answered their call. The price for their aid was steep. The spirits demanded a life, a sacrifice of Kieran's bloodline. Without hesitation, Kieran offered himself. The ritual unleashed a torrent of power, flooding through Kieran and his pack. Their howls echoed across the land, as they charged into the Warlock's stronghold, their strength unmatched. The Veilstone shattered beneath Kieran's claws, and the tides of the war turned. But Kieran did not survive the battle. As the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, the Alpha collapsed, his body consumed by the energy he had channeled. His pack mourned their loss, but their victory was undeniable. The Warlocks, now vulnerable, sued for peace. A truce was forged, though it was fraught with tension and mistrust. The wolves withdrew to their territories, while the Warlocks retreated into secrecy, vowing never to meddle in the natural order again. But the wounds of the First Blood feud ran deep. For centuries, the wolves and Warlocks coexisted in an uneasy peace, their histories marked by bitterness and betrayal. The Veilstone's fragments were scattered, hidden in places where neither wolves nor Warlocks could find them. In the present day, Trinity, who all her life felt ignored and insignificant, has become the most significant piece in the puzzle of the Wolves versus Warlocks history. But the question remains, why? If the Veilstone was real, what else from the old stories might still be out there? And what would happen if the delicate balance between wolves and warlocks were broken once again? Why is Trinity in the midst of all this? Is she a piece herself, or is she just caught in the crossfires? And what about Rhys? What role does he have in this dramatic history? Will he find his Luna?
I am Trinity. Want to know what happens next? Then click the link in the description below and download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of Chosen by Fate, Rejected by the Alpha.
Rhys's search for Trinity hits dead ends, a cruel game by an unseen enemy. Where is she? Is she alive? Who's behind this? Meanwhile, Trinity's thoughts turn to the ancient feud between wolves and warlocks, a conflict ignited by betrayal and dark magic. The First Blood feud devastated both sides, culminating in the creation of the Veilstone, a weapon that could strip wolves of their power. Alpha Kieran's desperate blood pact shattered the Veilstone, turning the tide but costing him his life. A fragile truce followed, but the scars remained. Now, Trinity, once insignificant, is at the center of this ancient conflict. Why? Is she a pawn? What other secrets lie hidden? What role does Rhys play? Will he find Trinity? What happens if the truce breaks? The Warlocks were not always the fragmented, secretive society they are today. Once they had a king, a ruler whose power rivaled the mightiest Alpha Wolves and whose betrayal would ignite the second chapter of the Warlock-Wolf feud. His name was Kaelus, and his reign was one of both brilliance and darkness. Kaelus ascended to power during a time of tentative peace. The First Blood feud had scarred the supernatural world, but an uneasy truce had been struck. The wolves retreated to their forests and mountains, while the warlocks built their enclaves, hidden from prying eyes. For decades, they avoided direct conflict, though mistrust simmered beneath the surface. But Kaelus was not content with peace. Kaelus was a visionary, a leader who believed the warlocks were destined for greatness. He saw their magic as a divine gift, meant to dominate rather than coexist. To him, the wolves were an obstacle, brutish creatures who relied on raw strength instead of intellect. He viewed the truce as an insult, a chain that bound the warlocks to a lesser existence. In secret, Kaelus began to gather followers who shared his vision. He promised them a new era, one where the warlocks would rise to their rightful place as rulers of the supernatural world. But to achieve this, he needed more power. The Veilstone was destroyed, but fragments of it still existed, scattered across the land. Kaelus believed he could reforge the Veilstone, making it even stronger than before. But to do so, he needed something far more potent than simple arcane energy. He needed the lifeblood of an Alpha Wolf. For years, Kaelus studied the ancient texts, searching for a way to break the wolves' formidable defenses. He developed a forbidden spell, known as the Binding Curse, which would tether a wolf's soul to his will, rendering them powerless. To test his magic, Kaelus turned his gaze to the Red Springs pack. It began with disappearances. Wolves vanished without a trace, leaving no scent trails, no evidence of struggle. At first, the pack thought it was the work of rogue wolves, or even hunters. But when the bodies started to reappear, Drained of life, their blood crystallized into strange black shards. They knew something darker was at play. Rhys's father, Alpha Darius, led the investigation. He was a fierce and noble leader, beloved by his pack. But the loss of his warriors weighed heavily on him, and he was determined to find the source of the attacks. Darius sought out an old ally, a warlock named Lysander, who had once fought alongside the wolves during the First Blood feud. Lysander was one of the few warlocks who had remained loyal to the truce, believing in the balance between magic and nature. When Darius explained the situation, Lysander's face turned pale. "This is Kaelus's doing," Lysander said. "He has been gathering power in the shadows, building an army. The wolves are his first target, but he won't stop there." Darius's eyes burned with fury. "Why would he attack us now? The truce has held for generations." "Because he believes the wolves are the only ones strong enough to oppose him. If he can break you, no one else will stand in his way." Despite Lysander's warning, Darius refused to back down. He led a hunting party deep into the mountains, where the warlocks were said to be hiding. The pack followed their alpha with unwavering loyalty, their howls echoing through the night as they prepared for battle. But Kaelus was ready. The Warlock King had been expecting the wolves. He had spent years perfecting his binding curse, and now he intended to use it on the most powerful wolf he could find, Darius himself. The battle was swift and brutal. The wolves fought valiantly, their claws and teeth tearing through the Warlock's defenses. But Kaelus's magic was unlike anything they had faced before. He summoned storms of fire and shadow, illusions that disoriented the pack and turned them against one another. Darius fought his way through the chaos, determined to face Kaelus himself. When he finally reached the Warlock King, he found him standing in the center of a ritual circle, the fragments of the Veilstone glowing with an eerie light. "You're a fool to come here, Wolf," Kaelus said, his voice cold and confident. "You've walked into your own grave." Darius growled, his eyes flashing gold. "You've spilled the blood of my pack. You'll answer for it with your life." Kaelus smirked. "Oh, I think not." With a wave of his hand, the binding curse activated. Chains of black energy wrapped around Darius, forcing him to shift back into his human form. He roared in pain, his strength draining away as the curse tightened its grip. The remaining wolves tried to reach their alpha, but the warlocks held them back. One by one they fell, their howls turning to silence. Kaelus approached Darius, a cruel smile on his lips. "Your blood will be the key to my ascension. With your life force, I will forge a new Veilstone, and no wolf will ever stand against me again." But Kaelus underestimated the bond between wolves. Even as Darius was bound, his packmates refused to abandon him. One wolf, a young warrior named Theron, broke through the warlock's defenses. He launched himself at Kaelus, his fangs sinking into the warlock's shoulder. The distraction was enough. Darius summoned the last of his strength, breaking free of the binding curse. He lunged at Kaelus, his claws slashing through the warlock's chest. The ritual was interrupted, the fragments of the Veilstone shattering into dust. The wolves retreated, carrying their wounded alpha back to safety. Though the pack survived, the battle left deep scars. Darius never fully recovered from the binding curse, and the pack was weakened by their losses. Kaelus, too, was changed. The wounds he suffered at Darius's hands left him disfigured, and his ambitions were set back by decades. But his hatred for the wolves only grew stronger, fueling his desire for revenge. Now, in the present, Rhys is still searching for his mate, unaware that Trinity is trapped, lost in visions of the past. How is she connected to this war? Why is her bond with Rhys failing? Is she wolf, warlock, or something else entirely? And will Rhys find her before it's too late?
Hey, I am Trinity. Want to know what happens next? Then click the link in the description below and download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of Chosen by Fate, Rejected by the Alpha.
Pocket FM. To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.